The 1950s in the United States are often remembered as a time of prosperity and growth. Images of happy families and thriving communities dominate the popular imagination. However, beneath this veneer of progress lay a darker reality for many African Americans. This era, while marked by some advancements in civil rights, was also a period of deep racial tension and violence. The fight for equality was in its early stages, and the struggle for basic human rights was a daily reality for Black Americans. Across the nation, Jim Crow laws designed to disenfranchise and segregate Black citizens held sway. These laws permeated every aspect of life, from access to education and housing, to public facilities and voting rights. They created a system where Black Americans were relegated to second-class citizenship, their lives and opportunities severely limited by the color of their skin. This systemic racism was not merely confined to legal documents, it was deeply ingrained in the social fabric of America. Prejudice and discrimination were pervasive, woven into the very language, attitudes, and behaviors of the time. Black Americans faced constant humiliation, intimidation, and threats. Their lives were devalued, their voices silenced, their humanity denied. This climate of fear and oppression created fertile ground for racially motivated violence. With segregation enforced and prejudice deeply entrenched, the stage was set for a wave of hate crimes that would leave an indelible mark on the nation's conscience. These crimes, often met with indifference or outright complicity by law enforcement and the justice system, served as stark reminders of the deep-seated racism that plagued American society. While the 1950s witnessed some progress in the fight for civil rights, it was also a decade marred by a surge in racially motivated crimes. These weren't isolated incidents. They were widespread, systematic acts of violence and intimidation designed to maintain the existing racial hierarchy. From lynchings to bombings, from cross-burnings to beatings, terror became a tool to suppress Black voices and quell any challenge to the status quo. These acts of violence were often brutal, marked by a shocking degree of cruelty. Victims were not merely targeted, they were often tortured. Their suffering meant to send a message of fear to the entire Black community. The perpetrators, often driven by a toxic mix of racial hatred and a sense of impunity, acted with a brazen disregard for the law and for human life. What made these crimes even more horrific was the casual acceptance, even encouragement, they received from segments of white society. Local newspapers often downplayed the violence or justified it with racist stereotypes. Law enforcement frequently turned a blind eye, failing to investigate, arrest, or prosecute the perpetrators. This lack of accountability only emboldened the perpetrators, creating a climate of fear and vulnerability for Black Americans. The prevalence of these crimes, coupled with the lack of justice for the victims, laid bare the brutal reality of racial inequality in America. It shattered the illusion of progress and exposed the deep-seated racism that permeated society. These acts of violence served as a stark reminder that the fight for equality was far from over, that the journey towards a just and equitable society would be long and arduous. The Emmett Till tragedy, a brutal murder that shocked the nation. Legal systems throughout history have often played a significant role in perpetuating racism. From the enforcement of segregation laws to the inequities in sentencing, the justice system has frequently reflected and reinforced societal biases. It's important to understand that these issues are not just relics of the past, they continue to manifest in various forms today. For instance, studies have shown that people of color are disproportionately affected by harsher penalties and longer prison sentences compared to their white counterparts for similar offenses. Moreover, the underrepresentation of minorities in legal professions and positions of power further exacerbates these disparities. Addressing these deep-rooted issues requires a comprehensive approach that includes policy changes, education, and a commitment to equity and justice for all. By acknowledging and confronting these systemic problems, we can work towards a more fair and just society. The echoes of unpunished crimes reverberate through the corridors of history, shaping the present in ways often unseen. When justice is denied, the wounds remain open, festering within communities and passed down through generations. The legacy of these unpunished crimes is not just a historical footnote, it is a living, breathing reality that continues to impact lives today. It's crucial to understand how these historical injustices connect to the racial inequities we witness today. The unresolved past fuels the systemic issues we face in the present, creating a cycle of discrimination and disenfranchisement. By examining these connections, we can better comprehend the roots of modern-day racial injustices and work towards meaningful change. Acknowledging past wrongs is the first step towards healing and reconciliation. It's not just about recognizing the mistakes but actively working to rectify them. This means addressing the systemic issues born from these historical injustices and ensuring that such wrongs are neither forgotten nor repeated. Through education, policy changes, and community efforts, we can begin to mend the fabric of our society. Remembrance and reconciliation are vital for moving forward. By remembering the past, we honor those who suffered and ensure that their stories are not lost to time. Reconciliation, on the other hand, allows us to build bridges, foster understanding, and create a more just and equitable society. It is through these acts of remembrance and reconciliation that we can hope to heal and progress as a unified community.